If you're in Seattle, and you need to buy or sell a home, we'll be right there for you. Because we're the realtors that you can trust. So go to ronanddonsitdown.com.
You're listening to The Ron and Don Show on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Hey, you guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Friday edition of the Ron and Don Show. Happy holidays to you and yours. Don't forget, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, you get the Ron and Don Show. Then on Friday, we just talk real estate. We go from radio to real estate, and you know that we sell the sound. So if you're thinking about buying, selling, investing in real estate, the important thing to do is reach out. We'll send you, in fact, we created little books, an investment book, a buyer's playbook, a seller's playbook. We can send those to you. Sit down, have a cup of coffee with Ron and Don. In fact, maybe we'll send you a Ron and Don sit-down mug. We always do that when we sit down with people. It takes about 20 minutes to read the book, and you can find out more about your investment journey. Then what we do is we actually do a sit-down online. We spend about 45 minutes together, figure out if we're going to be a good team, and then we chart a course from there. So ronanddonsitdown.com for more information. Ron is back with another graph to explain something to us. Jennifer wrote me last week and said, what kind of crazy wand is that? Is Ron's wand from The Hobbit? And I said, I don't think it's from The Hobbit, but I do think you're hot on to something. What is that? It is
a Harry Potter wand.
It's Harry Potter.
From the Harry Potter universe.
I love that.
And so my tip doesn't work anymore because I need to get new batteries.
Okay.
But so I'm hoping that I'm combining a bunch of stuff on this, on our whiteboard today, and jump in when stuff lights you up a little bit. So let me give you the basics of what we got here. This is, everyone always says, hey, where is the real estate market now? What is going to happen? How do I time stuff? What is stuff worth? What can I expect as a seller? What can I expect as a buyer? So I took a bunch of different things and put them on this graph, and hopefully this will make sense. So on our timeline here goes from 2015 to 2025. So we have a 10-year period this way, the previous 10 years. And so what I did is this bottom half is all houses in the entire MLS for both of these, the Northwest Multiple Listing Service. This is sold price versus list price as a percentage of, did things escalate overall for the entire market, or are they below list, were there price reductions for the entire market? So that's what we have down here. Up here we have the volume of sales year to year, month to month in the entire market, and how much money was being put into real estate every single month over time. So this is 2015 to 2025. And so we're going to get into there. And then I've overlaid Washington population growth, who the president was at the time, and what the interest rates were at the time. So let's just get some highlights here, Don. What we have here is when COVID hit right at the beginning of 2020, and people started staying at home, we saw this huge real estate spike. Why? Because it was the end of the Trump administration. Interest rates were at 2.77% right here. So we have COVID, low interest rates, and tech here in Seattle was doing massive hirings. Amazon, Google, everyone's hiring. Meta. In the peak, July of 2021, in just 1 month, there was $8 billion of closed real estate business in the Washington MLS right here.
Yeah, and during this time, what we saw is we saw a lot of people moving from Seattle to the east side. You had a lot of these companies saying, hey, you never have to come to work again, which they all changed their minds. So that's why you saw so much real estate business, so many dollars enter the market, because people were selling and then buying locally somewhere else. But they would buy out in a bedroom community or a really cool place out on an island somewhere. The other thing that we saw, and we saw this a lot, is people that had never bought an investment property or a second home. We saw people buying investment properties and second homes because they're like, we may never see 2.8% again in our lifetime. So people out there that were pretty savvy, they understood that.
Yeah, so there's 2.8. What I couldn't find is actual year-to-year or month-to-month graphs on the Washington population because the census is delayed. But what we did see is over this time here, from about here to here, about 600 to 700,000 people were moving to the Puget Sound area. And it was 2 times the national average. So that also put pressure on housing because all these people were moving in. This is now slowed down a little bit. We're no longer 2x the national average, but we're still above the national average. So the interesting thing to me is when Obama was in office in 2016, 2017 is when Trump came in, interest rates were at 4%. This was pretty stable. We were doing $4 billion a month at its peak, down to a little bit less than $2 billion a month, cruising through that. Then Trump comes into office in 2017 to 2021, and he was really pumping stuff into the stock market. If you remember, if you were a person invested in the stock market or in real estate, you did pretty well despite the politics of the president. And so we see over $4 billion a month here peaking. And again, this goes seasonally.
And if you read his book, The Art of the Deal, he judged the economy on 2 things. That's why he hates jobs numbers. He's like, jobs numbers are stupid. The 2 things that he cares about is how much is a barrel of oil cost, right? Mm-hmm. And what is the stock market doing compared to that barrel of oil? And those are the optics to this day that he always looks at. He looks at a barrel of oil, and then and now we hear him using the word affordability because everybody's using the word affordability. But back here, it was really about what does oil cost and what are we doing when it comes to things that are happening on Wall Street. Not as concerned about Main Street.
So check this out. So we see from 2017 to 2021, interest rates go from 4.2% to 2.7%. Then, so that's 5 years. Then in the time of the next 4 years, it went from 2.7 to 7.79%.
Yeah.
What does that do? Well, it's going to squash the amount of money in the market in real estate. Now we're looking at around a little over $4 billion at the peak of each year and dropping down under $2 billion as we come to the end of the year. So November, December into January here. And then the only overlay, and we talk about this with sellers all the time. We just had a seller that did this. I call this price derangement syndrome in a sense. They look back to their friends and neighbors and headlines between 2021 and 2022. This is when Don and I had a listing in Sammamish that went $400,000 over list price. This is when we had a house above Newport High School that went $300,000 over list price. $329,000 over list price. This is when you saw these stories on national news about how crazy it was in Seattle, where the average across the entire MLS in these months was 104%. So the average. So imagine how many junky houses and townhouses and condos were sold to get this average over 100%. Look at this drop off as interest rates begin to climb. People become attached to these numbers and they go, well, Fred and Ethel down the street got $2 million for their house. I want $2 million for my house. It goes from 104% off a cliff as interest rates are climbing right here, off a cliff down to here. And yet, despite that, we still saw over $6 billion in a month at the peak of 2022. So I guess you haven't seen this yet. So what do you think? Because Trump comes on here for his second term. Interest rates have gone down to around 6.25 as we end this graph.
Yeah,
on
and I don't think a lot of this has as much to do with Trump and Obama as it has to do with COVID. And I remember talking to Wes Jones, who's a good friend of ours, who's a great realtor, and he sells the sound as well. Ron used to do ads for him on Kyle Radio. He said be prepared because he saw this. He said the volume of business that you're going to do in 1 year for a lot of real estate agents. He said it'll take probably 3 to 5 more years after that to do as much volume as you're going to do in that first year of COVID when everything dropped to 2.8. What we also saw is we saw a lot of real estate agents just jumping in and saying, I want to be an agent and I want to be an agent. People wanted to jump in and go out and get their license just so they didn't have to pay real estate agent fees so that they could jump in and buy their own real estate. And for them, it was catastrophic and they didn't stay in the business. But Wes really was right. When money got that cheap, and people were sitting at home and looking for something to do, and people were still getting paid, and people were still getting checks every 2 weeks, people were like, oh, well, you know what? I'm sitting here. It's the same thing that happens during the holidays. One of the things that people do during the holidays is they shop and they start booking plane flights for vacations. They start booking Airbnbs. That's when my Airbnbs get booked. And they start looking at, I wonder what kind of real estate I'd like to buy in the spring. And that's one of the things that really fuels a springboard. I think the important thing, though, and we see this all the time, people that are selling now are always saying, well, 2, 3, 4, and really 5 years ago, they see this spike right here. And that, I think you call them Fred and Ethel. When Fred and Ethel sold, that's the number that they want in 2025. In some neighborhoods, you'll get that.
Very few.
But your property has to be unique. There has to be something. If it's a condo, that's not going to happen. If it's a shared wall, that's not going to happen. If I could go out and easily duplicate it, it's not something going to happen. It's not going to happen. But if it's something that is unique in a unique neighborhood, that is next to, say, great transportation, a great school, it's next to tech, it's next to the I-5 corridor or the 405 corridor or the 167.
Or light rail.
Yeah, so that makes a difference. But if you're looking at this and you live out in one of those bedroom communities that people bounce to, we sold a house in Camino Island 2.5 years ago. Some of the homes that were for sale at that time are still for sale. They're still for sale 2.5 years later.
So I think for me, I'm a glass half full type of person. When I look at this, the stuff that's good for me living in this part of the country, because I do travel a lot. I have family that lives in New Mexico. I have family that lives in Tennessee. I have family that lives in Florida. We're still seeing tens of billions of dollars in a calendar year being closed business in Seattle. So there's a lot of states where you don't get in the $8 billion in 1 month in real estate. And so that is good that we have this kind of liquidity in our marketplace where you see billions of dollars in transactions happening month to month, year to year. That's good. The other thing that's good to me is that this didn't fall off a map here. It didn't fall off down to here. In other words, there are parts of the country where it didn't rebound. It fell off this cliff and it stayed down here. That stuff it depressed prices so much that they didn't come back and reset. And so we live in a vibrant part of the economy where we have seen stuff reset. And so we said it at the time, and this is what always gets me. We said it 100 times at the time. This is historically low interest rates. This is a once in a lifetime situation. And people did not believe us and they didn't listen to us and they thought, oh, well, that's going to happen again. And it didn't happen again. And it's not supposed to happen again because of all of these factors that we just described coalescing at the exact same time. So for me, I'm glass half full. We still have a lot of money in this market. We still have a lot of liquidity month to month. We still have very good performance for real estate. If you bought something here and you're selling it here, you're making money. And that's not the case in all across America. There are markets where you bought something here, you're selling it here, and you can't even pay your fees.
This is what I would say when you have to be careful. Like if you go over and you look at some of the builders that are, like, let's say legacy builders right now, or James Madison Homes that are builders right now, they are selling homes on the east side in neighborhoods where they've paid $1 million for the dirt. They've invested $1 million to $1.5 million in the house, and now they want to make $1 million on top of that. So you'll see homes over there that are just homes. They're not even giant McMansions, but they're brand new out of the box. They want 3.2 to 3.5 for these homes. If you go out and you buy that home now, that home may be less. It may be worth less 3 to 5 years from now. You want to make sure, if for you it's a piggy bank, that you go out and buy something that is not brand new out of the box. It's like buying a boat or buying a car. A house can be a depreciating asset when you buy it in a market like this and it's brand new and you just have to have it. You want to buy something that's an appreciating asset, which means going out, finding a home that needs some work. That's the real opportunity in a market like this where you can still make big money, you guys. So, and it doesn't mean that sometimes people think, well, this old house, I have to do the work. You don't. What you have to do is know the people. You got to know the plumber. You got to know someone that can come out and do insulation. You got to know somebody who can come out and make the rats go away, because a lot of houses out there have rats in them. You have to know somebody that can deal with the ant intrusion that happens every spring, with the sugar ants especially. You have to know somebody like Greg at Classic Windows that's a window guy, or Paul that can put a roof on your house, or Erasmo that can come out and do the painting. That's the thing that we do for a lot of our folks that buy a house. The transaction happens really at the point that we buy the house for them, but then we turn around and they're like, hey, there's 6 things here that I need to do this house. We have connections and pricing that's probably better than what you can find. In fact, most of the time it's better than what you can find, because our contractors will give you a first fixed bid. And we'll talk about that next time. What is a firm fixed bid versus a bid where you're paying time and materials? You don't want to pay time and materials right now in a market like this.
Yeah, so we can do a deeper dive for your specific area on a Ron and Don sit down. We'd love it if we did that, and you're either buyer, seller, or investor. Go to ronandonsitdown.com.
I need a giddy up burger.
Let's go.
Matt?
Always in. Always in.
All right, we got to giddy up over to giddy up. Get a giddy up burger. Hey, you guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the show. Don't forget, if you need us, as Ron said, we have the buyer and seller playbook we can send you. Everything is at ronandon.com. And thanks for listening to the radio show on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And don't forget to get out to a Les Schwab Tire store, drop off a new toy. Matt was over there trying to drop off used toys the other day, and we were like, hey, that Tonka truck from your backyard, the broken road grader from 82, that's pretty nice, but keep that at your place in your sandbox. That's not going to work around here, homie.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, anyway. Remember that, the Tonka?
I love the Tonka.
The Tonka. Yeah, all right. Head up, shoulders back. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Ron and Don Show. Oh, my! And watching the Ron and Don Show. Only on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Well, that's it. Show's over. We'll see you next time on the Ron and Don Radio Network.